Welcome back, Giants fans. We are back. Me and Chris the Entertainah. The Giants coming off another victory. They remain undefeated. One of the few teams left that are undefeated. We'll see how much longer this goes on. It could go on for 2 more weeks. We'll find out. But Chris, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Why stop at two, Mike? Let's make
Why
it 15.
stop?
Make it 15 more weeks. No, but no, I mean, I'm really excited, man. It's nice, and I'm not gonna go crazy. I still haven't even altered my preseason prediction. I said 7 wins. I think I'm keeping it there for now to be safe, even though obviously I think it's much more likely now they could exceed it, being that we got off to a nice fresh 2-0 start. But we'll see, and we'll talk about the Cowboys game coming up, and I'm sure in the throughout the conversation and everything else. But regardless, you got to be happy if you're a Giant fan. I understand some Giants fans are cautiously optimistic, as they should be. This team still has a lot of question marks, but there's still so much to grow on. That's the way I look at it. Like, we clearly are not playing our best football as a team yet. We didn't have Thibodeau. We didn't have Ojulari. The offense, it's going to get better. I really, truly believe
Has
it's going
to.
to get better. So the way I look at it, Mike, is this team is going to be better. This team's only going to get better. We're not at our best yet. And the signs of a good team, not saying we're good yet, but the signs of a good team is when you're able to win when you're not at your best. And so far, the Giants have been able to do that.
That has been the biggest takeaway so far. It's mostly like coaching, and the Giants would have blown these games in the past, as we know. But you've said it, like knowing that they're 2-0 and knowing that there's so much to build on from what they've done so far is like the optimistic part of what's gone on here. Now, I think the problem is some fans are thinking the Giants are playing super well and that they're 2-0. That's not really it. I think what we're supposed to be
Well,
excited
what I'll
for.
say, Mike, I think on defense we're playing super well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Offensively,
Yeah.
has to be a lot better, right? Like the passing offense is, I think, 31st in the NFL right now. Obviously has to get better, and it will get better. But the main part is that these are games that in the past 5 years we lose. I think we all can agree on that. The Titans game we lose, he makes that field goal, and then last week, something goes wrong. The Giants probably don't get the first down. Jones, doesn't scramble for the first down,
Exactly what I
and
said in
then
my
the
post game
Panthers,
here.
yeah, the Panthers come down, tie it, and they go to overtime. Giants lose. Like we have seen that so many times. So not to kiss Brian Dable's ass too much, but I've been very impressed so far. Don Martindale has been unbelievable, and offensive scheme wise, I've been more impressed than this is the best Giants offense scheme wise I've seen maybe ever. I mean, it's impressive. So we have a lot to look forward to. The talent's not all there yet, but I think as Giants fans, we realize that we're in good hands, and that's the most important part to me.
Exactly. That's my exact take. And I'm gonna enjoy the season. I know a lot of people are thinking about long-term problems. They look at Daniel Jones, they say, like you said, 31st offense. We'll see. We got 15 more games to analyze them, but I'm not worried about the draft. I'm not worried about quarterbacks. I'm worried about analyzing this year's team. And then at the end of the year, them coming to a conclusion, not just on Jones, but all the players on this roster, figuring out the needs of the roster. But let's enjoy the season. We're off to a 2-0 start. I know fans are so accustomed to starting to think about the draft by week 6 or 7. It doesn't appear that's going to be the case this year, especially with some of the games we got coming up, especially in that 4-game window we've talked about after the Ravens game, where you figure they should be able to win at least 2 of those 4, worst case scenario. I know like the Lions look better now, but I mean, you still think Houston we should be able to beat. And so there's definitely a lot of winnable games still on the schedule, but just take it week by week and just enjoy some of the growth of this football team. And the biggest positive I take out of it so far is the coaching. Like you kind of said, the adjustments they've made. I think that's the sign of a good coaching staff. Like the offensive game plan clearly wasn't working week 1 at all. They made adjustments. It looked a lot better. Same thing this week. And the defensive adjustment at halftime this week, even though the defense was good in the first half, it looked like a completely different defense in the second half in terms of their approach, where they were just blitzing from all over the field. Baker Mayfield didn't know where it was coming from, and Wink Martindale just did an incredible job in that football game.
Yeah. What did you think about the having Cordell flop mostly on DJ Moore? Because that surprised a lot of people and myself included. And then kind of like not doubling Robbie Anderson, but like just, I don't know, like putting extra attention, not like, how do I explain it? You know what I mean? No, like it wasn't really like the cornerback wide receiver matchups we were expecting for the Giants defensively. Like it was weird.
Yeah, I think the Giants' line of thinking in that game was they didn't want Robbie Anderson to beat them over the top. They didn't
Yeah.
want to get hit by a big play. They wanted to make the Panthers work to go down the field. I think it was the same reason why McCaffrey had a good game on the ground. The Giants were like, we'll give you the rushing yards. We're not going to stop the line. We don't want to get beat in coverage. We don't want to get beat for a 70-yard touchdown, something that Robbie Anderson is clearly, capable of doing. And it worked. So I think that was it. I think they looked at Robbie Anderson as the guy that was more capable of scoring a 70-yard touchdown. So they wanted to minimize him.
Yeah, that's a lot of NFL defenses these days are doing like these high cover twos, and they don't want to get beat deep. So, I mean, Don Martindale, I think, had a good approach this game. I was very impressed once again. We know what they did in the second half, especially in week one versus the Titans, and how great they played defensively. And as you said, he's doing it without his two best pass rushers. And I do
And
want to give
without his
credit.
and without his corner and without Leonard Williams.
Yeah, Leonard Williams missed the whole fourth quarter basically too. I do want to give credit to a couple guys that filled in for the pass rushers, Jihad Ward, O'Shane Zimenez. They played very well. I mean, O'Shane made a few very big plays in this game, and he was a guy a lot of Giants fans, even myself included, a bit kind of like wrote him off like he was nothing. And the Giants and even Joe Shane in this current regime, they looked at O'Shane's tape and said, we can make this fit into Don Martindale's scheme. They kept him around. A lot of people questioned it, but I would say so far it looked good. Last week he was a big player for the defense.
I think O'Shane Zimenez is a perfect example. And yeah, that was a popular thing on Twitter. I didn't kill the Giants for it, but a lot of people did because a lot of people wanted Roche. I was never a fan of Zimenez, but I said, all right, new coaching staff. They feel like he probably fits the scheme better. I'm going to give him an opportunity. And that's the sign to me of a good coaching staff, that they identified that. And you see what Zimenez was able to do when when thrown into the starting lineup. And yeah, he was great. He had a sack. He had a good play in coverage where he almost came up with an interception.
Yeah.
He's been very good. He stepped up in a big way, but I think that speaks as much about the coaching staff as Zimenez himself, because we didn't see that from Zimenez since he's been a New York Giant.
Yeah.
So you got to give credit, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to Leonard Williams, even though he went down with the injury. He was very active. The stats may not indicate it, but he was blowing up a lot of plays up the middle that actually led to the Zimenez sack. And Dexter Lawrence, I feel like, had a play that went a little bit overlooked, even by myself included. And then when I went back and watched the game,
He
there was a
chased
play
Chase Baker down,
where
right?
Chase Baker, yep,
Yeah, yeah.
where it looked like a clear first down. He was able to get him to 4th and 1, and then they had the full start penalty, so they had to punt. That was a huge play in that football game, and Dexter Lawrence continues to play well.
Yeah, when you see a guy, what's Dexter 340? When you see him
Yeah,
chase down a quarterback like that, it's impressive stuff. And it also makes you scared because if a guy that big can move that well, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I mean, defensively, the funny thing is about this game, I saw people on Twitter talk about batting balls down from Mayfield. And like the first drive, it seemed like Baker
the
had two
first
or
like
three
3
balls,
drives, I
right? I
felt
mean,
like they were doing that. Yeah.
it's not many times you see like everybody on Twitter agree with something and like the exact thing plays out how we expected it to. That was pretty funny. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to Adoree Jackson too, how well he's played. I mean, like we definitely have had concerns about him being healthy, and we're 2 games in, so he has to remain healthy the rest of the year, because if he doesn't, that's not going to be good for our secondary, obviously. But I would say so far, looking at his advanced numbers and everything, I think somebody tweeted it out. He's been just amazing. I mean, there was one play he was in coverage where Baker made that crappy throw on the DJ Moore out route on a 3rd and 1
Yeah.
and hit off DJ Moore's one hand. But like, Adoree Jackson's been awesome. Like, I just hope he can keep it up. As we said, he should be here next year due to the contract, but he's playing at a cornerback one level right now.
Yeah, I even said that today on Twitter. I said I feel like he's the most underrated New York Giant,
Yeah.
Adoree Jackson, because like last year, a lot of people didn't like the signing. They said you overpaid, wasn't worth the money. And I think he kind of went under the radar because like early in the season, a lot of Giants fans gave him slack because he dropped the interception, even though that was a tougher play than people really made it out to be when you really went back and watched it. Not saying he shouldn't come up with it, he should have, but it was a tough play. But he played well last year. You think about the performance he had against the Chiefs last year in that game. He was great in that game, where I think he was manned up on Tyreek Hill the entire game. Bradbury was on Kelsey, I think. But he was great in that game, the defensive game plan in that game. And he was a good player for them all year. And now, like you said, he's getting more of a role this year now that he's got to be the cornerback one. And so far, so good. I mean, he's done a really good job for this Giants team. And you could argue he's the most important player on this defense. When you factor in our limitations, like you said, at that position, and the fact that we want to blitz as much as we're gonna. Right now, the Giants have blitzed 42% of the time, which is the 3rd most in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Don Martindale had that reputation coming here, and he's lived up to it so far. I'm sure you went over this in your preview because you're good with research and things like that, but I'm sure you saw the stats about Baker Mayfield versus Don Martindale throughout his career. When Martindale was the Ravens DC and Baker, of course, was the Browns quarterback,
Yeah.
and they had all the AFC North matchups together. Baker did not fare well in those matchups, and Baker's a quarterback that when you pressure him, he, he makes pretty bad decisions. He rushes his throws. We saw this on Sunday. So coming into it, I felt pretty good about that particular matchup, that Don Martindale has historically gotten the better of Baker Mayfield. Now, I did have the concern, like, okay, he had better talent in Baltimore on defense, but it didn't matter. Like the pressure killed Mayfield. The biggest play of the game, the Julian Love sack, that came to fruition as well. But yeah, I mean, it was like history repeated itself. It didn't matter if it was the Ravens defense or the current Giants defense. Don Martindale just got in Baker's head once again, and it worked out.
Yeah, I think Don Martindale, the type of scheme that he runs, and yeah, I did see that. I don't remember all the exact stats, but
Yeah.
yes, I did look into that. And yes, he had good numbers against Mayfield. But I think the type of scheme that he runs and the approach that he has, you're going to see him have success this year with a lot of the teams on our schedule because I think if you're going up against mediocre quarterbacks, they're going to struggle against the defense like Don's. When he goes up against the Rodgers of the world, that's a different story. I could see him picking us apart with the limitations we have on our defense. And it's going to get ugly. But at the end of the day, he's probably going to pick apart most defenses. But I think against quarterbacks like Tannehill, quarterbacks like Mayfield, quarterbacks like Rush this week, the following with Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence is a young quarterback. Like I feel like he's going to give a lot of these guys fits this year. So I think it's going to work with our schedule, especially as we start to get healthy. I have a lot more confidence in this defense than I did going into the year. That's for damn sure. When you look at what we've been able to do, without Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. So it's been beyond encouraging thus far.
Yeah, and hopefully we get these pass rushers back this week. It seems like the news has been positive about Thibodeau. Haven't heard much about Ojulari. I don't know if you have, but I'm just
No.
really hoping we get these guys back because, it's a primetime game. It's against Dallas, and it would be awesome on a national stage if like these guys can make their season debut for Kayvon, an NFL debut, and put on a show hopefully against the Dallas offensive line that has not been the same as it has been the past 7-8 years.
Yeah, we're gonna talk more about that. I guess once we go over the
Yeah.
offense of last week, but I'm really amped up for that game. I'm leaning, and I'm not a doctor. I don't work for the Giants, but I'm leaning that Thibodeau's probably going to play. I don't think Ojulari is going to play. I think Ojulari I just feels like this is going to be something that lingers throughout the year. Like he had the hamstring, now he's got the calf. It's two like lower body injuries. I feel like he's going to come back at some point, but I think it's going to be a bit longer than we think.
Yeah, even if they keep him out till the tough games like the Packers, what's that, week 5? I mean,
Yeah.
I can live with that. Of course, the Bears are pretty beatable for the most part. I don't know if you've seen the Bears passing attempts this year. I know we're going 2 weeks at the Bears passing attempts this year have been like just laughable. Like the Giants are 31st in passing offense, but the Bears are like twice as worse as the Giants. Like it is bad. Like
He
they
had
don't
70. He had
pass
70 yards last week. Justin
they just
Fields.
don't pass the ball. Like it's crazy. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you noticed this, but like I'm looking at the snap counts now. So Julian Love, Xavier McKinney played 100%, no surprise. But there was a rookie in here that almost played 80%. Dane Belton, 79% of snaps. The Giants went a lot of 3 safeties, I think sometimes even 4 on the
Yes.
field. Was that a surprise to you? Because personally, for me, it wasn't. I think
No.
our linebacking core is not the strongest, and like they want to play faster, of course, blitzing these guys. I think it made a lot of sense. I like having these 3 safeties, Love, McKinney, and Belton out there.
Yeah, I said that. I think in my preview video is I expected a ton of 3 safety looks. I think it's matchup dependent, but I think against this team, it made a world of sense to do that. And it probably had something to do with why McCaffrey run the ball as well as he did, because we didn't have a lot of, middle linebackers out there. So when he got to the second level, he was able to take off. But you needed those guys in coverage to minimize McCaffrey coming out of the backfield as a receiver, which I think was a weapon that everybody was worried about going into that game because we know Calitro, they're not covering him.
Yeah.
So I think it made a world of sense. And I think they'll go week to week with it. Certain weeks they'll have more 3 and even 4 safety looks, like you were saying, than others, depending on the matchup that they're going up against. This could be another week where you see that, though, because obviously Pollard's a threat coming out of the backfield. He's a mismatch with our linebackers in coverage. So I could see it again, maybe not quite as much because Zeke's a thumper, but I could see it again where you see more than we saw week 1. Let's put it that way. But this week it made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I don't know if Zeke's a thumper anymore. I don't know what he is. He's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad, but he does not look good at all.
Hey, he's a Cowboy. Say whatever the hell you want.
I don't know. It's rough. I wanted to say something else. Damn. Well, even Tony Jefferson, I think he played 29% of snaps. So, or no, 17. Sorry. Fabian Moreau got 29%.
He actually made a big tackle, Moreau, on
Yes,
the
he did.
on
McCaffrey.
McCaffrey run.
That was the point I wanted to make. McCaffrey didn't really have that great of a game if you take out that one big ass like 50-yard run. Like they kind of kept him in check, you know?
Yeah, 49 yards. He was running fairly consistently. He was getting like 3, 4, 5 yards at a clip. But yeah, he wasn't gashing us. Barkley was kind of the opposite, where he got completely stopped in the first. And then,
Yeah.
even though he didn't have that 50-yard run, he had a bunch of like 8 to 11-yard runs, like when
Mhm.
we needed him the most, where he really started to get it going. So Barkley, I actually don't look better than McCaffrey as the game wore along, even though McCaffrey, like you said, had that one big run.
Yeah. I think Barkley's highest was 17 yards, maybe.
Yeah, it was
Um,
on the touchdown drive. He had
that's
that
yeah.
one run off the right
That
side.
drive, man, if we can replicate that a few times per game, that'd be freaking great.
That was great, that drive.
If you
Yeah,
take but if you take that drive away, like, the offense looks so bad. I mean, we'll get into
yeah,
it, but, like, last point I wanna make about the defense, I feel like a lot because I was petrified, as you mentioned, like, of the McCaffrey versus the linebackers matchup in pass coverage, like, Kalitro on McCaffrey was not something I was looking forward to, but I think Don Martindale's defense was so aggressive that they kept McCaffrey into pass block a lot. Like, I didn't
mhm,
exactly go back and look at every single snap, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like McCaffrey wasn't even used that much as a receiver. When coming into the game, it was an obvious advantage for the Panthers, but maybe they couldn't use McCaffrey because they needed another, like a sixth offensive lineman, basically. And
yeah.
McCaffrey was that guy. So, I mean, that's kind of how it worked, I think.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, like you said, they're sending 6 guys every play. You need an extra guy in there to help your quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Offensively, let's see. We have a franchise left tackle, right?
By the way,
Because
before we jump into the offense,
yes.
Graham Gano.
Oh, hell yeah.
Graham
We're
Gano, man.
cracking up.
Give that guy whatever he wants. I mean, I had a guy on Twitter today, and I thought about it after he said it, and I retweeted it and gave my opinion because I said something nice about Graham Gano. I don't remember what I said, but then he was like, I'm sorry, I can't get hyped about the Giants because all these Giants fans are hyping a kicker. And then I retweeted it and I said, if Graham Gano wasn't a Giant, we'd be 0-2 because I said if Graham Gano wasn't, if he was a Titan week 1, we would have lost because he would have made the 46-yard field goal.
Yep.
And if he wasn't a Giant this week, we probably would have lost because he made a 56 and 52-yard field goal. Graham Gano has been so important to this team, and all you got to do is watch the first week and look at the Titans kicker, right? When the game was on the line, he doesn't get it to go. So he's been so good, and I think he needs to get a little bit more credit than some people may be giving him around the league.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially around the league. I mean, yeah, you don't want to rely on your kicker to be your main source of
Sure.
offense. Like it's like the 20, what was it? What was Tebow's year? The 2012 Tim Tebow year when that kicker kept making 60 yarders to
Yeah.
win the games. Might have been Matt Prater. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Graham Gano has been awesome. I just, when he came over from Carolina, he was coming back from the injury, I think, and we had some concerns of will he be the same guy? I mean, he's been awesome, been worth every dollar so far. So
That was
thank
gentleman's
God.
best free agent signing.
If
Either that or Adore
yeah.
Jackson, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe Bradbury, but it's up there. It's top 5. There's no doubt
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Um, all right, yeah, offensively. All right, franchise left tackle, Andrew Thomas deserves to be well known around the league by now, and he's finally getting it. I think people I saw that Ari Mirov account, which is the big
Yeah, yeah.
NFL account people follow now. He even gave a personal praise to Andrew Thomas. Like I think people are starting to get it now. Like this guy is legit. I think coming into the year, people were not giving him respect for whatever reason. I get he missed a few games in the past with injuries, but now we're seeing it. Like, yeah, he allowed a few pressures this game. Okay, you're playing against very athletic edge players and Gross Matos and Brian Burns. It's going to happen, but didn't allow a sack. I don't think he's allowed a sack this year, right? Thomas has been flawless in that category. Um,
100, if I remember his numbers off the top of my head, overall 89.1 PFF grade, which is first, like you said.
yeah,
Second is 83.3, so it's a huge
yeah,
drop off. He's only surrendered, it was either 3 or 4 pressures in 134 snaps and no sacks. So he's been dynamite. He's been great. As big of a jump as he took year 2, which was gigantic. It looks like he's going to match that level of jump this year. I think last year he was like a fringe Pro Bowler. Now he's all pro. Like he's
yeah.
that level now. And I only expect it to continue. He's dynamite, and it's great news for the offensive line going forward. We still have our limitations on the line. We still need to plug up at least 2 more holes in the future on the interior. Evan Neal, I have no doubt in my mind, is going to mature as a football player. It may not be this year. He may struggle this year, much like Andrew Thomas did. Hopefully not. Hopefully over the second half of the season, he really hits his stride. But regardless, I think the experience with Thomas should give this fan base a lot more patience now with Evan Neal on the right side.
Yeah, speaking of patience, I can't I just remembered people comparing Thomas to Eric Flowers his first few games. I was like, guys, come on, like give the guy some time here. But yeah, thankfully Thomas came around. He's a 4th overall pick. So obviously the Giants had a lot invested in him, but I
That one
think
worked out. That one
yeah,
worked out. People laughed it off after the draft, Mike, and they said, Oh, he's the fourth best in the class. Gettleman whiffed again. Flowers. Well, look at it now. Mekhi Becton keeps going all you can eat buffets. He can't stay on the football field.
Yeah.
He's hurt again. Jedrick Wills has become a mediocre lineman.
Yeah.
Last year you look at his numbers, he fell up, and this year so far he's off to a mediocre, probably less than a mediocre start. And Tristan Wirfs has a 75 grade and plays on the right side. Only 2
Yeah.
weeks, but Andrew Thomas is at least, yeah, he's cementing himself as the best, certainly the best left tackle in that draft, and arguably may end up being better than Tristan Wirfs as an overall tackle. So
Mhm.
yeah, that pick is looking better and better by the day.
Yeah, I had like Thomas and Wills on like the same tier. I'm happy they went Thomas now looking back on it because as you say, Wills is like a fine starter, but like Andrew Thomas is looking like all pro level type player, and that's a big difference. So thank God. Thanks, Dave. All right. So just the center and right guard spot, I would say, like they had some issues in this game. Glowinski, I think, allowed a sack, and then we had that run play where Feliciano got blown up. It was a run play to Barkley to the right side, and his guy just went right through him like he wasn't there. I don't know who the Panthers guy was, but you know what play I'm talking about. So there's been inconsistencies with the interior. Not much of a surprise because we knew that coming into the year. But our tackles, at least, especially Thomas in year one, they're showing like they're going to be here for a while, and we have that taken care of. So hopefully next year, the years going forward, we can find ourselves a decent center, decent left guard, maybe draft, one or two of those guys, and we'll have a good offensive line finally. It's been a long time, but we'll get there.
And maybe Azuda will develop into something.
Yep.
He struggled a bit this past, not a bit. He was bad this past game, but he didn't get as many snaps as he did week one. He got less snaps actually, but he's definitely a guy. When I watch him, I could see the potential. I see the athletic upside. He's definitely a guy that you could see why we drafted him. So hopefully he can develop. But if not, yeah, you have to continue to draft that offensive line. Even if they're not going to be starters, depth is very valuable, right? So they need to continue to do it. But the fact that we feel like we got two strong tackles, when's the last time you could say that as a Giants fan? The rest should fill in over time, especially if Neal could develop into a very good right tackle. Because then all of a sudden, all right, now you got two guys you can stick out on an island on either side of the line, and you just let those three guys kind of help one another against the rest of the defenders, where you could just rely on Neal and Thomas to just man up on their own. So that'll help the interior if Neal could develop. So the long-term view of this team for me right now is beautiful, because I do think that line is trending way upwards. I think it'll continue to struggle this year, specifically in the first half, but long-term, the line looks in great shape.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice having it's nice having faith in our head coach and general manager to make the right moves. And so far they've been great. I mean, look, it's only 2 games in. A lot can happen, a lot can change, but I'm definitely optimistic about the future of this team right now. All right. So talk about the quarterback, Daniel Jones. He was 22 of 34, 176, one touchdown, no turnovers, thank God. 87 quarterback rating. Should have had one. We'll talk about that. On the ground, he was 10 for 21. 21 rushing yards, not a lot, but some of those rushing plays, big, because he had the 4th and 1 pickup on the rollout and the game-sealing rush where he almost stumbled over himself. Luckily, kept his footing and made a nice play, improvised, picked up the first down, slid, Giants win. So Jones, I would say, listen, I think people are giving him a little too much credit for how he's played. I know he's 2-0, and I'm a quarterback record guy. He's done enough to put them in positions to win, but I think people are acting like he's the reason the Giants are winning. I don't know about that. But I think in this game, he looked pretty good for the most part. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do. I know the near interception before halftime would have been horrible, and it would have maybe been a pick six, honestly. But we have seen the people that go over all 22 film, like, Bobby and Dan Schneider, all those guys, they have showed videos of Daniel Jones missing open receivers downfield. And you'll get comments of people saying oh, Daniel Jones doesn't have enough time to throw, which is true sometimes. And sometimes receivers don't get open, but then you see 3, 4, or 5 examples of him not taking chances deep. And my thing is Daniel Jones is in a make or break season. We said this last year, but definitely this year, especially with a new GM. If you're not going to take those chances, they're not going to like that. Joe Shane's not going to settle for a game manager, which I feel like Jones is kind of shooting for right now. If I'm Daniel Jones, I'm taking more chances. You might as well go out trying, because if Daniel Jones has this, I'm going to be conservative and not lose us the game type attitude, I don't think there's any chances back here.
He's replaceable.
Very, very replaceable, especially with his contract being up. If I'm Jones, I'm slinging it. I'm taking these chances. And if it doesn't work, okay, but at least go out trying. Don't just settle for these dump offs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as far as Jones goes, I think for the most part I'm in complete agreement with you. I give him a C plus week one. I'm gonna give him a C plus again. I think it was slightly above average when you factor in the moments in which because that's important for a quarterback coming
Yeah.
up in big moments, right? He had the big drive at the end to seal off the game. He started to wake up in the second half when they needed him. We were down 13-6, scored a big touchdown, had two scoring drives after that. So I give him a C plus. He made mistakes, right? He definitely missed Tony on one big play, that for sure. And you didn't need the all 22 to see that. It was right in front of your face when you were watching the game. The obvious pick six, which I do want to say, and I'm not excusing Jones for the throw. It's a horrible decision. I thought Dable should have called a timeout before that play because I think they only had 45 seconds when he completed the pass. They still had two timeouts. You're trying to get in field goal range, and they wasted 16 seconds getting up to the line of scrimmage. So it was at about 30 or 29 seconds.
Mhm.
And while I was watching the game, I'm like, Dable should call a timeout with like 43 seconds left. You still got one timeout left. And then you go to the line of scrimmage more prepared for a very important play coming up on 2nd and 1. So that, and that's being a bit nitpicky overall. I love Brian Dable. I thought that was a minor mistake on his part. I thought he should have called a timeout before that play. But yeah, the pass by Jones was inexcusable there. But overall, it's a small step. I like it. It's nothing that blew me away. Like you said, I don't think he won us the game, but he had key moments, very much like week one, very much like week one, where he had some key moments, didn't put the team on his back, but he did what he had to do when the game was in the balance. So good job, not great. Pretty good job, not great. We need to see him to continue to grow up this, but I do think we're going to see this offense evolve. I do. I think we're going to see more chances over the course of the year. I just don't think we're going to see it quite yet. And I don't think we'll see it this week against Dallas either, going up against that team. And I'll talk more about that while we get into the game. But so far, so good for Jones. But obviously, I think we realize we're going to need to see a lot more.
Yeah, at least he definitely outplayed Baker Mayfield because we know the history between those two guys with Baker's quotes about him. And let me say it right now, I was a Baker guy. I mean, I think I give up. I know the Panthers situation's not great, but like he just did not look good. And yeah, I think it might be over for him. I think he might be after this year one of those journeyman type guys. He brought Cleveland to the playoffs. That was cool, but like I think it's over. I think his confidence is pretty much shot. I don't know. It's just he doesn't seem like the same guy with the same swagger anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, and he doesn't have what he had in Cleveland, in Carolina. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to be the same quarterback when you go from the Brown situation to Carolina's.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, the thing that pissed me off, like I saw that tweet, I'm sure you saw it too, was someone was like, "Oh, the Giants don't win that game without Daniel Jones." I'm like, "Come on." Like I think there was a lot of quarterbacks that could have won that game. Like I'm not saying like some bum would have won that game, but like I just feel like we're trying to push narratives too much. I think the
But
guy
Jones,
played.
Jones was solid. Jones was solid. If I was giving out game balls, Wink gets the game ball because Wink was the major reason why we won. The defense was definitely stronger than the offense. Gano gets a game ball. Obviously, he had 4 field goals, 2 huge pressure ones for sure. And I gave the fans a game ball. Wink called
Yeah.
out the fans at the start of the game. He said, "Get on your feet." They were loud as hell. And you look at the third down conversion rate; they were horrible. I think that so far this year, the Giants are only surrendering a third down 21% of the time, which leads the NFL. That's one good stat. Our defense so far, albeit against two mediocre quarterbacks, but still 21%. That's an area we really struggled with Patrick Graham. And that goes to Wink. Wink's done a great job in terms of dialing up the blitz, being unpredictable on third down, getting off the field. But yeah, for sure, the defense won us the game. Jones helped, but he was not the main reason why we won. And I don't want to overlook Saquon Barkley either. I think Barkley was great in this game. The stats may not say it. I think he had 20 carries for like 72 yards, but he had a loaded box for the majority of that
Yeah.
game. And he just kept fighting. I think he only had 5 yards at halftime. He finished with 72 yards. So he had over 65 yards in the second half running the ball. And he had a number of really big runs down the stretch where he was picking up 10, 11 yards, fighting, pushing the pile. So Barkley had another really good performance. I can't say he matched week one because week one he was on another level,
Yeah.
but I was just as impressed with him this week. Let's put it that way, based off the circumstance.
I agree. Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought up the fans. I mean, they were loud. You could tell like right away. I have not heard MetLife that loud for the Giants in a while, so that was great to see. But yeah, you mentioned I think Barkley has looked great. I know the stats weren't the same as last week, but like the guy still made some big plays when we needed him to. That first run on the final drive where he picked up 7 yards on the
Yeah,
first run,
huge, huge.
offensive line did a great job, but he was running hard on that play. There was a play in the third quarter where he ran very hard as well. I forget what drive it was specifically. I don't know if it was the touchdown drive, but anyway, he was running hard and he's making jump cuts. Like he can trust that knee once again. Like he looks great. We mentioned it last week. As long as he's healthy, that man's going to be in, you know, maybe not the offensive player of the year, but he's gonna be in the conversation. Like there's guys having great seasons out there.
He's gonna
Cooper
have
Cup,
2,000 scrimmage yards if he stays healthy
he
this year.
probably will. Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah.
He's gonna have a big year. I think he's gonna have a big year.
I wanted to ask you this question. Like, what would you say are the top 3 reasons the Giants are 2-0 right now? Because I think my answer would be probably Don Martindale.
Yeah.
Number 2, I just think the offensive play calling is probably better, and, like, Saquon
I
3.
I I would say coaching adjustments at
Sure,
halftime.
sure,
You
yeah.
know, the offense more specifically. Well, but I will say the defensive adjustments week 2 were even more impressive to me than the offensive adjustments. But week 1, the offense has been good both weeks in terms of the adjustments. So
Yeah,
just the coaching adjustments at halftime, the improved coaching overall would be by far my biggest reason. Whether it be Wink, whether it be Dable, whoever. The aggressiveness of the coaching as well, going for it on 2. Graham Gano, I think, has to be in the top 3.
it's a good
Especially
point.
factor in this last game. I think he has to. I know people don't like to overlook the kicker. He doesn't score touchdowns, but he's been really important to this team the first 2 weeks. So he's in my top 3. And I'd probably have. I think I'd have it for me. It's either Barkley because Barkley was so good week 1. It's probably Barkley, but at the same time, you don't want to overlook the job that Zimenez and Jihad Ward did filling in for the 2 injured edge rushers. So
Yeah.
they deserve some credit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. You look at, like, some of the best running backs in the league, and some of the first names out of your mouth will be McCaffrey and Henry. I would say the Giants did a pretty good job on them, especially Henry. But, like, McCaffrey did get 100 yards. Okay, it was the one big run, but they didn't look like vintage McCaffrey, vintage Henry. And I think coming into the year, the Giants weren't talked up as like one of the better run defenses in football. We know we had Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, but, like, Blake Martinez was gone. So I don't think people expected the Giants run defense to be good, but I would say so far, outside of that one McCaffrey run, it has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, how could you say it hasn't been? You could
Yeah.
argue we've gone up against the 2 best running backs in the sport going into the year, and we've kept them in check. So Giants have done a great job overall defensively, no doubt about it. Like we said, Adoree Jackson deserves a ton of credit. Cordell Flott, outside of one drive, and he was horrible in that drive.
Yeah.
He did as good as I could have hoped for, in that game. So I'll say decent job. Julian Love was great in that game. Darnay Holmes, I actually thought played pretty good. He had a couple of key blitzes. He had a nice pass breakup at one point, which was good to see because he got cooked week 1. Just overall, just the defense was just incredible. Week number 2, incredible.
Definitely. And, hopefully against as we'll preview the Cowboys in a bit, but hopefully against a Cooper Rush led offense, they can do the same thing here. All right, so, like, receiver wise, I want to talk about that touchdown pass to Bellinger, his first career catch. It was a
Yeah,
touchdown, so that was great, full extension. But just like that play design was awesome. Like, you have Jones do like the fake handoff, rolls to his left, simple little dump off pass, and the guy is wide open. When the hell have we seen that in recent
yeah,
years? Isn't it great? Like, even the touchdown against the Chris Myrick touchdown, it was such a well drawn up play, and it's like
yeah,
you just have to
yeah. Myrick
toss
was wide open on that
wide
touch.
open, right? I think most of the Giants fans could have made that pass. Like, it
Yeah,
was it was great.
and it was great. I think it was a great play design, and I think that play was set up as well as it was because of Carolina overemphasizing trying to stop Saquon Barkley. So
Yeah.
they ran an RPO, he faked it to Barkley, they overcompensated to try to stop Barkley, and it was the perfect time to call that play. He pulled it back, and he was wide open in the flat because they sent 8 guys to try to kill Saquon Barkley. So but that whole drive by Jones was masterful. That
Yeah.
that was definitely like that drive, and we need to see more of that. We need to see at least 2 drives of that a game by Jones, not one. We need to see him progress and get better each and every, throughout the course of the year. But that drive, I mean, he had a huge third down completion to Richie James over the middle for, I think it was like on a 3rd and 11.
That was a great throw. Like, the zip on that ball was awesome.
Yeah.
Placement, everything. Yeah.
And then the other throw, considering where he threw it across his body to the middle of the field to Richie James, that considering he was going against his body, he was thrown over the middle of the field, and it wasn't like he was like wide open. A lot of times when you
Yeah.
see quarterbacks do that, the guy is like wide open. There's nobody like no, there was a guy relatively close, so he had to put a good amount of zip on that ball. Both of those throws were really good. He made another great throw too, where I didn't really appreciate it so much while I was watching it live, but when I got to watch the old 22, the throw he had to Sills, when they got it to the 41, that was a great throw. So
Mhm.
he had 3 really good throws in this game for me where I was like, wow, like not like Josh Allen throws, but I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like that's above average quarterback throw. Like Baker Mayfield ain't making that throw.
Right.
Ryan Tannehill's not making that throw. The two quarterbacks we saw the first 2 weeks. So there were definitely like even though I'm not saying I was overly impressed with his overall performance, but there were definitely some moments in that game where I was like, okay, like this is he has more talent than some people may be giving him credit for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I said. I did like a highlights reaction video. I don't do all 22. I don't have the time anymore, but I do like the highlights reaction. And like I basically said if Daniel Jones makes more of those type of throws, I would get off his ass. Like
Yeah,
I just don't see it enough, and it's annoying because we know he can do it. Like we
yeah.
see you can zip it in there 15 yards to Richie James on a deep slant, and you can fit it through a tight window. But why aren't you taking more chances like that? Like I think maybe Jason Garrett poisoned his brain not to take many chances, but like he's got to get out of it. And we agree the offense will get better, but part of the offense getting better is him taking more chances because if
Yeah.
they turn into a team that settles for field goals all the time, they're not going to have a great offense.
I think he needs to slowly build up confidence. So
Yeah.
far, I like the trajectory. Obviously, we know he's at a CC plus right now. By the end of the year, if he wants to stay on, he's got to be at a B plus. So he needs to get better. But so far, little baby steps. And I do think they're going to open up this offense by week 5 or 6. It'll come down to, like you said, is he going to reach that level of confidence where he's willing to sling the ball? And can we win football games doing that? I mean, Daniel Jones' last 5 games, he's 4-1. So hopefully he can
Yeah.
continue it. He
That's
won two out
true.
of his last 3 games as a starter last year, in which he beat the Raiders, and he beat the
Panthers,
Eagles.
maybe.
The Eagles
Oh,
was his last
yeah,
start.
yeah.
They got
That's
hurt.
right.
So he beat the Eagles. He beat the Raiders, 2 teams that went to the playoffs last year,
Hmm.
and now he's off to a 2-0 start this year. So he had a Bucks loss in the middle of that. So hopefully he can continue. Hopefully he builds some confidence off these wins, and he opens it up a bit as we get going over the course of the year.
Definitely. I wanted to ask a question to you. I asked this to the people watching the video yesterday. I said, what surprises you more, that Richie James is the Giants' leading receiver after 2 weeks, or the Giants are 2-0? Which surprises you more?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I even said in my post game video after, when you look at the box score, you would have thought it was a preseason game because you had
Mm,
Richie James, David Sills, Tanner Hudson,
yeah.
uh, Daniel Bellinger. I think those were our 4 leading wide receivers with Sterling Shepard mixed in. So it's crazy. I would say Richie James is more surprising, being the leading wide receiver, because I thought we had a decent shot to beat Carolina. I would pick this to beat Carolina going into the year. So I had us at 1-1, and I didn't think we'd get blown out by Tennessee. But if you would have told me going into the year that Richie James would have more than 3 or 4 catches and would be, he'd be above guys like Tony and Golladay, I would have been like, no way, unless they were
Hmm.
hurt. They haven't been.
Yeah.
They've just haven't been utilized in the game plan, which I want to talk more about as we come back for the second installment of this, the Golladay news today and everything else. But yeah, crazy with Richie James, absolutely crazy.
All right. So as we were saying, we're going to talk about the Giants receivers from week 2. We wanted to talk about Tony. We'll get to the Kenny Golladay quotes in a second here. And Golladay only played 2 snaps in this game, but we were mentioning Richie James once again led the Giants in yards this game, 51 on 5 catches. You had David Sills, 3 for 37. Sterling Shepard had the most targets with 10, 6 for 34. Of course, we saw the touchdown for Bellinger, and Tanner Hudson, 2 for 22. But what was your overall takeaway with the wide receiver utilization and things like that?
I mean, surprised. Obviously I didn't think that they weren't going to use Golladay at all in that game. Tony was barely used too. I know he's a little bit dinged up, so not quite as surprised with him because but based off the way they used him week 1, I didn't think he'd have a much bigger role this week, being that word came out that he had some kind of dinged up hamstring throughout the week. But Golladay, definitely surprised. I didn't expect just 2 snaps, and I think they only used him in the red zone on that one drive where they scored the touchdown, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, for those 2 plays. My When I tried to come up with a line of reasoning, and we don't know, we're not there. For all we know, maybe they don't like how he looks in practice. Maybe they feel like he doesn't fit the scheme. Maybe they feel like he didn't get enough work in preseason. We don't know the exact reasoning, but from a game plan standpoint, when I tried to I was like, all right, they're versus a defense that likes to blitz a lot. They're gonna have 7 or 8 in the box the entire game. So maybe Dable's line of reasoning in this game, if I'm trying to come up with like a game plan reasoning, Galladay's a guy that kind of needs time to run his routes. Panthers are going to be bringing the blitz. You want to get the ball out quick. You need more receivers out there that could create quick separation. They probably had a lot of max, 2 tight end packages to be able to block a lot of these guys coming in, which is why you saw Tanner Hudson out there a lot. And that might have been the main reason why Golladay was not involved in the game plan this week, more so than anything else. Maybe it was just based off of this specific team. They've and because of the limitation on their offensive line, they don't feel comfortable putting him out there, every single play, knowing that he's a guy that needs some time to develop his routes.
Yeah, I that's definitely an interesting point. I don't know. For a guy to play 2 snaps
No,
and
I'm
make
still shocked.
oh,
$72 million. I'm
it's
still shocked.
very
Yeah.
shocking. I mean, my friend who's an Eagles fan texted in our group chat. He's like, the Kenny Golladay contract might be the worst in football. I said, might be the worst. Like, come on, find me a worse one, please.
Listen, man, as fair as I tried to be to Dave Gettleman, and Dave did do some good things. You look at this roster now, Andrew Thomas, good thing. Evan Neal, good thing. I give him credit for that because he turned
McKinney,
out to
yeah,
pick. McKinney, good
Gano,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, Graham Gano, good thing. The book is still out on Jones. Barkley, good player, not the right pick. But like he brought in some good players. But is he is literally from 2018 on, from when he took over for the Giants, he is literally responsible for the 2 worst free agent signings in the NFL: Nate Solder and Kenny Golladay. I don't think there's a worse one. Like I can't come up with one.
like history or like just
No,
in
no,
that
over
time.
that from
Oh
2018
yeah.
to now.
I was gonna say Albert Haynesworth's pretty bad, but no, that doesn't count in that time period.
Maybe there's 1 or 2 worse,
Yeah, I
but
don't know. Yeah,
you got to look long and hard.
I'll try to think about that. But yeah, that's pretty rough, honestly. I mean, we were excited, of course, when that happened. I remember back in 2018, I didn't hate the Solder thing as much because they needed a left tackle
No,
so
it made
badly.
sense. It
It
made
made
sense.
sense, but like that was just the wrong player. And then Galladay just wasn't the right fit. They may have went all in an off season too early, as we know. But hey, at least Adoree Jackson has worked out so far. Whether they overpaid or not, he is definitely producing for them. But yeah, as you said, like it looked like a preseason type stat line. I was not expecting. I will say Sterling Shepard looks really good coming off the Achilles. There's a couple guys, even James Robinson, that Jaguars running back, he looks good too off the Achilles. So hopefully these Achilles injuries are a thing of the past for these NFL players. But just even seeing Richie James out there so much, kind of playing the role that we would see Kadarius Toney playing, it was very shocking. And just seeing David Sills just flat out play over Kenny Golladay was not something I expected a month ago, even 2 weeks ago. It's wild. I know Golladay had a rough preseason and things were not looking good for him, but my goodness, to not play at all, basically, it's just like very surprising. I didn't notice it, of course. Then I saw one of the beat reporters said, "Oh, Galladay's only played 1 snap through the first half." I was like, "Excuse me? Like, is he hurt? Like,
Crazy.
what's going
Yeah.
on here?" So, um, but I'll let you touch on it because you made a video today. How did you react to Kenny Galladay's comments? And you can just go over them real quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't have the exact quotes in front of me, but he basically said, paraphrasing a bit, that he's not happy that he was benched. And he basically said that he hinted at the fact that if things don't improve, he could potentially be open to a trade and to try to get himself out of New York. And I forgot his exact wording, but he was pretty blunt. Let's put it that way. That he was not happy with what the New York Giants did. And I can understand it from a competitor standpoint. You're a guy that's had success in the NFL, and you're getting benched for David Sills. You're getting benched for a guy that's a converted wide receiver, was a quarterback and has not been able to stick on with an NFL roster. He barely made the team this year, and you get benched for a guy like that. So obviously it's a slap in the face. He feels that way. But at the same time, I don't feel bad for Kenny Golladay. I just don't. Golladay, we saw, and listen, I try to be as fair as I can. People were riding Kenny Golladay this year in training camp because it didn't look like he was putting forth a ton of effort. Then it came out after the fact that he had some kind of offseason procedure. So I said, okay, maybe he's trying to keep his body safe for the season. I tried to be as fair as I can, didn't overreact to the preseason stuff. But at the end of the day, Kenny Golladay was not drafted by Joe Shane. These guys have nothing to do with Weiss here. And for people, because I see people on Twitter say, oh, I feel bad for Golladay. It's Daniel Jones' fault why Galladay's not producing. A dipshit. Kenny Golladay chose to play with Daniel Jones. Kenny Golladay took $72 million. He could have went to the Cincinnati Bengals for probably a little bit less money. They were offering him a contract to play with Joe Burrow. He said, no, I'll take the extra money, and I'm going to play with Daniel Jones. So when you take that kind of contract, whether the Giants overpaid or not, if you're Kenny Golladay, it is your job to be the number one weapon and to improve and make your younger quarterback become a better player. Kenny Golladay has not done that. So I understand why fans are frustrated, and I don't feel bad at all for Kenny Golladay. He got paid. He hasn't produced. Get out on the football field. I'm sorry. I don't feel bad for you. That's my take on it.
Nothing wrong with that. Was he supposed to go to the Bengals? I thought it was the Ravens. Was it really the Bengals?
I know that there were teams interested, and other than just the Giants. I know
So
that I thought Cincinnati was one of them.
I was gonna say if he went to the Bengals, that could have changed like history because I don't think they would have drafted Jamar Chase at that point. Well, maybe they would have. I don't know, but
No, they probably take Penny
that's
Sewell.
yeah, that's a crazy thought. All right, so the snap count wise though, so David Sills week 1 played 45% of snaps. He went to 92% of snaps in week
Yeah,
2.
so he took Golladay's role.
He took his role. Richie James dropped though. Richie James went from 70% to 42%, but with that, Kadarius Toney had 4 times his amount of snaps. Quick math went from 7 to 28 snaps, 12% to 38%. So I think Toney, we'll see him in hopefully the 50 to 60% area this upcoming week. They might slowly work him in. Maybe they throw him out there for 80%. I have no idea, but I want to see Toney play. I think we all do. I know some people are kind of just done with him already. I get it, but like he's too talented to just play 38% of the snaps on this football team. This is not a Giants team that has Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz and Mario Manningham out there. This is not the same situation. So I do want to see Toney play more. He probably will. And as for Kenny, 77% week 1. Okay, not as many as you'd want, but it's not terrible. 3% last week. It's just crazy where it's gone. And it's interesting that, like, let me ask you, where do you think this is going to end up with Kenny Golladay? Because I have no idea. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. I don't know if he'll get traded. I mean, God bless any team that takes that
I was gonna
contract.
say, I don't see a market for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Giants still have to eat a lot of that money, but you're still on. If you trade for him, you're still on the books for next year, the year after that. So, like, I don't really see it. Maybe a team is desperate enough and they feel like they're a weapon away like that, that they're willing to give up a 5th-round pick or something to bring Kenny Golladay in. But I don't see it. And if they're not going to trade him, that means he's going to be here. Because if we cut him, it's actually going to cost us money. So I think it's going to be a situation where he's going to have to make do with whatever the New York Giants want to do. And if he's not a team player, well, maybe you put him on the practice squad just so he doesn't disrupt the locker room. If he's not happy with his role, but if Dable feels like it's in the best interest of the team to alter what he does with his wide receivers on a week by week basis, and Kenny Galladay's not happy with that, too bad. Brian Dable's the head coach. Brian Dable wasn't the coach when you were brought here. It's his decision. I'm gonna ride with the head coach.
Yeah, I know as fans sometimes we think we know more than sometimes the coaches and
Well,
all
the
that, but
O'Shea
like
Jimenez thing's a perfect example.
that's true. Yeah, but I was gonna say like I trust Brian Dable to know like what a good receiver looks like versus what a guy who doesn't deserve to play looks like. Like this guy came from a team that had, Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. He's seen what a good receiver looks like. Gabe Davis is a good size comparison for Golladay. Like he knows what it's supposed to look like. And in his mind, if he thinks, because Brian Dable's not out here to tank in week 2. He wants to win these effing
Did you
games.
see the way they reacted in the locker room? How
Hell
happy he was there?
yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah,
he 100% believes that last week David Sills gave him a better chance to win. He's not trying
that's
to lose,
it. That's the
you
point I
know.
was getting to. Exactly.
And
He
we and
thinks
Mike, we may not know. It may not. He may be seeing something in practice that us as fans don't see. Like Golladay
mhm.
had a procedure in the offseason. He may look at Golladay and say, "No, he is not himself. He is not. He's not going to help this team as much as Sills. He knows a lot more than we do. He gets to see these guys each and every day in practice, in training camp. So I'm going to trust the head coach. It's his job to do this. And listen, Sills had a couple of big catches. He had probably one of the maybe the biggest catch of the game
Yeah.
on that play where Daniel Jones hit him at the 41. So it is what it is. We all want to see Golladay, especially with the money he's making. But I'm not one of those guys. Like, I don't care if he makes $72 million. If they feel Sills is better for that week's game plan to have him out there, I'm going to trust the head coach to make the right decision.
Absolutely. I just, I know he played more in week 1. I didn't see anything week 1 where I was like, oh, you got to play Golladay more. He caught
It's
those
20 yards.
two curl routes. Like, okay, they were playing zone. You sat down in the empty spot of the zone and caught a ball and didn't go anywhere. All right, whatever. So I definitely, I don't want to say I definitely support what Dable's doing, but like I get it. I'm not going to be frustrated. Of course, this is a guy that led the NFL in touchdown catches just 3 years ago, and now he's here. It sucks, and I was hoping for a lot more. But if Sills
Are
gives
you a
the
little
John,
surprised we haven't seen Slayton at all?
I am. I actually was just looking at that. He had what I think he had 4% of snaps or 5%, and then he had 0 the first week. I mean,
I
yeah,
think he was on the practice squad the first week.
yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like because he typically has pretty good chemistry with Jones. I know he drops a lot of balls, but Jones seems to look for him, and he's a guy that could stretch the field. But like I said with Golladay, I feel like I could see Slayton and Golladay have bigger roles as they start to feel more confident about their line being able to pass protect and about Jones being more confident in this offense as they look to take more shots down the field. I think that's when maybe you'll see more 5 wide sets. We haven't seen that yet, really. You'll see more Slate and you'll see more Golladay once this team starts to develop. But I just feel like they feel like they're not quite there yet where they're able to open up that offense yet.
Yeah, I want to ask you that question. Do you think that they're not opening up the offense because they don't trust Jones, or is it because of like it's just a new thing and they're trying to?
And I know a lot of people are speculating it's because of Jones. I don't think that's the case. Even if they don't trust Jones or if they're questionable about Jones, they need to find out what Jones is this year, and I think they realize that.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think their ultimate plan is to use Jones in this fashion all year. I don't
Mhm.
think they're going to make him a game manager throwing for 180 yards all year. No, I think they're going to open up this offense. I think it's the line and the fact that it's a new scheme, not just for Jones, but the receivers on the roster. They're all still learning it together, and you have Saquon Barkley. So it's like, what you have an unfamiliar quarterback in terms of this offense with his receivers that aren't on the same page. You have an interior offensive line right now that is probably the worst at football in terms of pass protection that have never played together before. They need to grow some chemistry with one another, and you hope by week 5, week 6, they're at least okay. So where you could start to open up this offense. But I think because of the limitations mainly on the line, they're like the first 5 weeks or so, we're going to ride Saquon Barkley until such time we feel comfortable in really starting to open up this offense. So I don't think it's Jones. I think it's more the line and the fact that they're still getting accustomed to the new offense.
Yeah, and you would think by week 5 they're probably going to be in a negative game script with the Packers and playing some catch up. You would think so. They may have to air it out more times than they would want to in like a neutral game script situation. So we'll see. But I do want to see Golladay play more when they decide to open up the offense and pass the ball
Yeah.
downfield because that's what he's been good at. So I do want to see that. But all right. So any other thoughts about week 2? I mean, winning's
2
great.
0.
That's
2
it. 2
0.
and 0, right? That's it. 2 and
I
0.
don't care how we get it. And I said it today on Twitter. It's like, Mike, I see a lot of people talking about like the teams that we beat. I got people saying on Twitter, "Oh, you beat 2 winless teams." It's been 2 weeks and we're undefeated, which means all they had to do was lose one other game to be winless. So it's not like you're not going to rain on my parade. We're 2 and 0. There's no style points in the NFL. This isn't the college football. 2 and 0 is 2 and 0. I don't care how you got there. Just find ways to win football games. It could be the ugliest thing in the world. And the other thing I'm going to continue to say, if you're listening to this, at least in my opinion, you can do what you want as a fan. Have a little bit of patience with this offensive scheme. I know we don't love all the play calling. We should have touched on the second quarter, the Kafka play call, the design run for Jones on the goal line. That was a horrible call. I know that like there's things that we don't like along the way, but have some patience. Look at 2007, Mike. Spagnola. I don't know if you remember that. Maybe you were a little too young,
I
but
was pretty young, yeah.
yeah, but in 2007, the Giants defense was horrible the first 3 weeks. People were calling Steve Spagnuolo a moron, and then that defense found their stride. They got used to the scheme, and probably from weeks 4 on, they were one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in football. The first 3 weeks, they were one of the worst. So it takes a little bit of time, and sometimes and offensive schemes typically probably take a little bit longer than defensive schemes to pick up. So as much as you hate the P word, as much as I realize it's Jones's 4th year, it's a brand new offense, not just for Jones, but for everybody from within it. So have a little bit of patience. Let that, and I think these wins should buy them that. But give them another 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so to really get used to this. And I truly do believe, Mike, we're going to start to see this open up.
I hope you're right. I mean, yeah, I like that comparison with Spagnuolo. I mean, I was like 11 or 12, but that team did have more horses than this team did, with like
Oh, I'm not comparing in
Strahan,
terms
you know
of
what I mean?
talent.
Like, yeah, all those
But
guys.
with those horses, the defense sucked the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Like it
exactly.
was bad. And then it became like the best in the league.
Yeah, I think me and you have pretty realistic expectations for the most part. We don't think the Giants offense will be top 5 this year. We don't.
No.
We're hoping for like just scored 22 points a game, 23. Like,
If they're
you know what I
league
mean?
average over the second half of the year, I'm not even saying like league average for the year. If they're
Yeah.
league average for the second half of the year, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're the 16th best offense from weeks 9 on because of the growth of this team and you're trending upwards, I will be happy with that growth.
And if they can play defense at this level and, hopefully when our pass rushers come back, they'll be better, you would assume. As long as the offense is decent and putting up somewhere in the mid 20s per game scoring wise, they're going to win some games. You know what I mean? So they just have to get a little better offensively, stay where they are defensively, and they might get themselves 8-9 wins. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully that's the recipe for success. All right, so week 3, we'll do a little mini preview here. It's a Monday night game, so we're still a little far away, which sucks, but definitely excited for it. Dallas is 3rd in sacks I'm looking at. They have 8 sacks on the year, 3rd most in football, trailing Buffalo and Tampa Bay. Micah Parsons is a madman this year, but the Giants at least have 2 good tackles that can try to help mitigate that. But I think for me, I'm scared of Dallas's defense. I
Yeah,
have concerns
sure.
about our offense putting up enough points in that game. But on the flip side, can Dallas's offense put up enough points to beat the Giants? I'm expecting a low scoring game. You never know, but that's what I would assume so far looking at this matchup.
Yeah, I haven't really dove into it quite yet. I'll probably do my matchup preview video probably on like Friday. I haven't dove into like the stats because I just haven't had time. But just looking at it on paper, and I know Cooper Rush looked pretty good in the first half last week, and a lot of people were saying that. Listen, it's Cooper Rush, and listen, now Wink has tape on Cooper Rush, being that Cooper Rush played a game. The Cincinnati really didn't, right? In the offense that Dallas is currently running. So the way I look at it, Mike, is I think Cooper Rush will be at more of a disadvantage now that there's one game of game tape on him. I think Wink will be able to dial up a blitz that's going to confuse this guy, right? He's a young, inexperienced quarterback, doesn't have a lot of experience in the NFL. Going up against a defense like Winks, I think that's a recipe for disaster for Dallas for sure. I think we definitely could create some turnovers in this game. On offense, yeah, I worry about it, and I do. This is not the week for all the fans out there that are crying to see Daniel Jones throw for 300 yards and open up the offense. This is not the week to do it. You're going up against, like you said, Micah Parsons. They have 8 sacks. They've been dominating in that area. And you're going up against an offense that you're not going to have to put up a whole lot of points to win the game. So it's not a week, in my opinion, where you should take more risks. As much as that may suck, I think this is a game. If you're the Giants, you have to go in there and try to win dirty. That's the way I look at it. Try to run the football, have 2 tight end sets. When you do throw the football, make sure you have some help for Evan Neal, where I think Micah Parsons will be paired up on. They'll try to take advantage of the rookie right tackle. So definitely have some help there, whether it be Myrick, Hudson, maybe Barkley to chip block, whatever else it may be. But you're going to need to help Evan Neal in this game, no doubt about it, because Parsons is an animal. But I think you have to stay committed to the ground game for sure in a game like this. This is not the week to open up the offense.
Yeah, I'll see how the Cowboys defense is doing with rushing yards per game.
And I do think, by the way, Mike, if we could establish a decent ground game, I do see an opportunity where similar to week 1, where we hit that one huge play to Shepard. I could see a play like that in this game because we all know like
Yeah, yeah.
Diggs is not allergic to getting burnt over the top.
That's for sure. They're allowing 4.2 yards per carry on defense. That's like
League
13th, middle
average.
middle of the
Yeah.
pack. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, they listen. I want them to stick with the run in this type of game. They shouldn't get behind that much in this game where they would have to pass the ball. So, and with Cooper Rush, I mean, he had, I don't know if you watched that game, he had so many dropped interceptions by the Bengals defense. I
Yeah,
mean, like, my goodness.
I didn't watch enough of it.
I think Mike Hilton had a ball literally in his chest and he just dropped it. That's why they play defense, as they say. But like he will make mistakes in this game, I think. So especially with the Giants and their, blitz heavy defense. I think they have the 3rd highest blitz percentage in football. If you combine that with Adoree playing well on the outside and their corners holding up right now, and I think Aaron Robinson should be back, right? Appendicitis, I've never had it. I don't know how long he'll
I don't
be
know.
out.
I don't know. And if not, I'm hoping the week after, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, we get the extra day, so that helps. But hopefully
Yeah.
he's back by then. But even then, we have our safeties playing well. I think maybe we'll see even more Dane Belton. We'll see if they go away from like the
And we
traditional,
might see Kayvon Thibodeau.
even better. I'm very
That would be
excited for that.
exciting. That would
Yeah.
be exciting.
Can you imagine he comes out and has like 2 sacks already and like strip sack or something? Like
Oh, give like those Micah Parsons vibes from last year with
Yeah,
the Cowboys.
exactly.
He had that
Yeah.
immediate impact. You think about if Kayvon Thibodeau is what we hope he could be, which is an upper echelon, like what we've seen from what's his name on the Lions.
Oh,
Um,
Hutchinson. Yeah.
yeah, he had 3 sacks last week.
Yep.
If Thibodeau could be that type of impact with what we've seen so far in this defense, you had a player like that where you don't have to blitz quite as much. He could just get natural pressure. Like he could make this defense a lot better.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that would stop Martindale, but it would
No,
help.
it would. It would. But it would make the blitz more effective because teams would have to double up him and it would give you more lanes for the safeties and the linebackers would coming off the blitzes.
Definitely, yeah. Even Dallas's defense on 3rd down percentage, they're 13th once again. So they're looking pretty league average in like the main categories. Do you know the Buccaneers defense is allowing 6.5 points per game? That's insane. I know it's 2 weeks, but still.
Yeah, well, they kept the Saints in check for sure. I think it was 20. Because they gave up 10 to the Saints and they gave up 3 to the Cowboys week 1. So yep, 13 points in 2 weeks.
Jameis Winston went full 2019 mode again. Cowboys defense allowing 18 per game. That's actually tied with the Giants. So I mean, yeah, like these I say Dallas's defense is better than ours right now, but it's not by a lot. You know what I mean? Like they're still in that same ballpark. And who the hell is the coach, the defensive coordinator, the 28-3 Falcons coach, Dan
Yeah,
Quinn?
yeah, Quinn.
He's been doing a great job with that defense, of course. Got to give them credit. But, as you said, hopefully with the Giants, they can find Barkley and get a
I think it's gonna be
couple.
a game of who turns the ball over less. That's who makes less mistakes in this game is ultimately gonna be
That's
who,
exactly what I said last week, and it's probably right. And we didn't
because
talk about. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, they gifted us with the 2 early fumbles. We didn't
Yeah.
talk about that. That unfortunately only went in 6 points, but like that was huge. How they just gave us the ball on the first freaking kickoff of the game, and then Henderson fumbles. I mean, that was a gift, but I was hoping for at least a 10-0 lead to start out, not 6-0.
Yeah, but I just feel like when you look at these two teams, that both defenses are ultra aggressive. Like Quinn is gonna blitz a lot, we're gonna blitz a lot. You have two, mediocre quarterbacks that, we don't have Pat Mahomes playing in this game, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like I just feel like you have two teams that are gonna try to create a lot of turnovers in the way that we play defense. Whoever creates less is gonna lose this game on defense. So and I think in the end the Giants will do a better job at that. I think we'll be able to hold on to the ball. Jones, as much as hasn't exploded this year, he's done a pretty good job in terms of limiting mistakes. And I think we'll come out with a conservative game plan, knowing the opponent we're going up against, and it'll be like similar to last week, like a
Yeah.
17-14 type game. Like I think it'll be an ugly, muddy win, but I think we'll get a win.
Yeah, it's not going to be one of those fun type games to watch, but still, I mean, a win's a win. We'll take it if they can get it. Is Jones has not won on prime time, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, he should have last year. We should have beat
Yeah,
Washington. Slayton
definitely.
dropped
Oh
the
my
ball.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, but people say that stat, Mike, and I get it. But to be fair, look at who he's played on primetime. Like with a horrible Giants team, usually when you're on primetime, you're playing great teams, right?
Yeah.
He played like
Steelers, Bucks twice, I think.
he played the Bucks twice. One year they won the Super Bowl. He played both years with Tom Brady. He played
Yeah.
the Steelers. He played he's played some the Eagles,
Patriots,
Patriots. Yeah, the
rookie
one year
year. Yeah.
they were really good. So he's gone against really good teams. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have a good record on primetime.
Yeah, exactly. Meant to say something else. Damn it. Now I forget. But any other comments about this game? And we expect it to be low scoring. Hopefully the
Yeah, I
Giants,
just yeah, I think it'll come down to the defense again and establishing the ground game. It's going to be very similar. I expect Jones to be right around 200 yards passing again, 180 to 200 yards, and try to establish that game with Barkley. I think that's going to be the game plan, and I think it'll be the game plan week 4 as well. If I'm looking ahead to Chicago, because I think it's very similar. You have a limited quarterback. You're going to ask Jones not. They'll open it up a bit more in that game, just because I think they'll open up a bit more against the Bears in terms of throwing the football. Will be another week advance. But it's the same thing when you're going up against these inferior opponents, which I do believe Dallas and Chicago are right now, with Dak not playing and Smith out, the left tackle. It's going to be a game where you ask Jones not to lose you the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So as much as it may suck and people are going to get on Jones, I think it's the right approach by Dable this week. So don't get mad. Just find a way to win. And I think it's Dable's job to come up with the game plan that gives this team the best opportunity to win. And I think this week, that's that. If Jones opens it up and throws for 300 yards, but throws an extra pick or two because of it, it could cost us the game going up against a team like this. So
Yeah.
I expect more conservative this week, and I think it's the right game plan.
Even the next 2 weeks, if they go conservative, I can live with it, because I think the next 2 games are going to be which team plays the cleaner game between the Cowboys game and the Bears game. By the way, I think we're home for the Bears game, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to that game. Yeah.
Nice. So I think we win that game by a touchdown or more. And I cannot remember the last time I've said that about the Giants. I just don't think Chicago's good at all. Like
And you're picking the Giants this week.
I can't, because I've picked against them the first 2
I'm
weeks.
doing the same thing on my pick video. I'm picking against them, but when I talk in my live streams, I'm picking us to win. I think we're gonna. I think we're gonna win. But yes, I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm keeping my routine up. I'm picking against them because it's been working. But if your brain is telling you think the Giants are going to win this game, that means you think they're going to start 4-0.
Yeah. No, I think which is crazy. I do think the Giants win this game. Now I'm afraid to say it out loud, but yeah, I do think the Giants win this game. I think they win this.
Like if you weren't a Giants fan and you weren't superstitious at all, you're just a guy from Florida betting on a football game, you would bet the Giants.
I would. What are they? -2.5, -3?
Yeah, I think it's -2, -2.5.
I would take the Giants. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will take Dallas on the spread pick show just to keep it, keep it going. But no, I think the Giants should win this game. It's of course, primetime Giants, things have
I
not
wouldn't be
gone
shocked
well.
if they lose. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but
but
but I think I feel very similar to this game, the same way I felt about Carolina.
mhm.
Going in, I thought it was a game we could lose. I was worried about some things, McCaffrey, like you said, but I thought we were about a 2 or 3 point better team. I feel the same way with no Dak, with Rush in there, and no Tyron Smith. I think we're like a 3 points better. So I think we should win. I'd say like a 60% chance we win. Like it's not like a shoe in, but yeah, I'm with you. I think we're gonna beat the Bears too. So we might get off to a 4-0 start before
Yeah,
we go.
this may sound idiotic, but I feel better about this game than I did about the Panthers one. And it's like that's a Cowboys team that just beat the defending AFC champions, and I was more scared of the Panthers who haven't done shit the past God knows how many years. I know it's a dumb thing to say, but maybe I'm just more confident in this Giants team than I was. Because like week one, it's like okay, kind of fluky,
Yeah.
anything could happen. But then you see week two, and it's like this team's actually establishing a winning identity. Maybe this is for real. So maybe I'm getting like sucked in too much now, but I do think the Giants should win Monday night. I almost said Sunday. I think they should win Monday night. I really don't see why not. I think you can argue they're the more talented team, much better coached. Oh my goodness, much better
Yeah.
coached than obviously with Mike McCarthy. Um, this is what I wanted to ask you. We'll kind of end on this little funny thing here. So I'm sure you have like a full-time job now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
sure you have people that like talk sports at work and all that.
Of course.
I've already heard a couple people say, I think the Cowboys might be better with Cooper Rush than Dak Prescott. I'm like, Jesus Christmas. Like, I love how we just made these quick reactions and not saying Prescott's like great. I don't think he's even
I don't
top
think he's
10.
great.
But
No.
like, my goodness. I get Rush is like 2-0. He's had two impressive victories, but like, come on.
No, like no, he's not too. Oh, you mean last year he had a
Last
mean?
year he beat the
Yeah, yeah,
Vikings.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. They're not better with Cooper Rush. Like no, yeah, no. I'm gonna tell you what though, Mike, and maybe it's an overreaction. Did we overrate the Bengals? Did they just go on like a fluky Super Bowl run? Did we overrate them a little bit?
Well,
Now,
you'll like this as a Knicks fan. I've seen so many people call Joe Burrow Jeremy Lin, and I find it so funny.
well, like part of me is like it might be because Cincinnati, similar to us, had a lot of turnover on their offensive line, and it
Yeah.
may take them 3 or 4 more weeks to really get used to playing with one another because they improved it from a talent standpoint. But it doesn't matter when you've never played together. It takes a little time to build some chemistry. But I do think people jumped the gun a little bit on Joe Burrow, and and,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, Joe Burrow I still think is going to be a really good quarterback. But when you really go back and look at last year, Joe Burrow wasn't the real reason they went to the Super Bowl. It was their defense why they went to the Super Bowl. They shut out Pat Mahomes in the second half. They got 3 picks against Tannehill. Like the Cincinnati Bengals, it was a team effort. I'm not saying Burrow had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it. He played well, but I feel like people jumped the gun a little bit on Cincinnati coming into this year.
Yeah, I heard I love the offseason offensive line moves they made. Lael Collins and I think Ted Karras, and they
Yep.
got Kappa from the Buccaneers. And that looked great. Their offensive line was the big issue watching them in the playoffs last year, and they still got to the Super Bowl. But I heard a stat today on a podcast, I forget where now, but some podcast that their offensive line, like, allowing pressure wise, is like the second worst in football. And Joe Burrow for quarterback responsible sacks is also second worst in football. So like they just
Oh,
have a horrible combination of Burrow holding onto the ball too much and the pass blocking offensive line being trash. You look at their offensive line talent wise, it's not bad, but as you said, maybe it's going to take a little while to get together. If they lose to the Jets this week, they might as well just
that's a
forfeit the rest of the
problem.
year.
That's
I
a
don't.
problem.
We didn't talk
Speaking of which,
about the
what a
Jets.
win by the Jets,
Oh my
man.
god, yeah,
I never thought they'd beat the Cleveland Browns.
no,
And never, and granted, they got, well, what's his name at quarterback, Brissett, but
percent, yeah.
never thought Joe Flacco was going to beat that Cleveland team. So that was probably the biggest shocker of week two was that one.
Yeah,
That was a shocker. And the Colts getting shut out against Jacksonville, 24-0.
that may have shocked me more. I don't know. Yeah, but oh my god, the Colts! Wow. Can
Yeah,
you
that's
imagine that fan base? I mean, they gotta do something. These old quarterbacks, it ain't working out. They got to do something here.
yeah. But we'll see, Mike. Hopefully next week when you come on, we're talking about a 3-0 team getting ready to take on the Chicago Bears, who just threw for 70 yards last week, and
Mm.
definitely a team I think we could hopefully take advantage of. And maybe then you're looking at 4-0, and then you say to yourself, maybe Rodgers gets some bad sleep before the London game. We could get lucky there. Who knows? But
Yeah.
let's get the 3-0 before we get the 4-0. I'm looking forward to Monday night.
Who commentates Monday night games? I forget.
Wow.
This isn't like Tarico, right? This
I
is.
think it's Buck now. I think
Oh,
they
you're right. You're right. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I watched the Manning cast, but I think it's
yeah.
Buck. I think it's Buck
Is the
now.
Manning cast on this week?
I'm not sure.
No,
I'm
I
not
don't know.
sure because they
We'll
don't do
find
every
out.
week. But the Giants are playing. You would think they'd be on.
Yeah, you would think, right?
It's
Yeah,
Eli, right? You
yeah,
would think.
you would think. Um, But yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. Like I like some of my best memories as a Giants fan growing up are like watching those primetime games and the NBC games, especially like playing Dallas on a Sunday night, getting a big victory, things like that. It's bringing back those old vibes, like that nostalgia in a way. You know what I mean? Like just bringing me
Well,
back
yeah.
to
I mean,
my
like I'm dying for the times that you look at the schedule and you're like, oh, the Giants are on Sunday night 3 times this year
yeah,
because
exactly.
that's what we had when Eli. Even when we were bad because of Odell, the team was still nationally relevant. But we haven't had that since probably like 2017,
Yeah.
where so it'll be nice to hopefully get back to that maybe next year. But obviously, 1 year at a time. But yeah, this definitely has those. I'm still considering going to this game. We'll see, but I'm definitely going to the game against the Bears week 4. But
Yeah,
I'm man,
my
looking
my
forward
uh my dad offered me tickets, but it was like the worst seats possible. I don't like going to football games in the first place. I'm like, you give me 40 to 40 yard line area, I'll go. But like it was like corner top of the stadium. I was like,
yeah.
I'm good. I'll stay
I
home.
tell
But
you what, Mike, out of all the sports, the atmosphere for football is awesome. You get
yeah,
there for the tailgate, the crowd is awesome, but the viewing experience, it's the worst of the four
no,
major
I
sports.
can't do it.
And it's actually a sport where it's much better on TV. Like hockey is much worse on TV. It's much better in person.
Baseball
Basketball,
too,
I'd
right?
say it's better in person. I think the other three sports are better in person. Where with football is meant for TV because you need
Yeah.
all the different camera angles. It's such a wide field. Yeah, football is I love going to football games, but in terms of a viewing experience, TV is much better.
Absolutely. 100% agree. All right. So I think that's gonna wrap it up here. And I hope next time I see your face, we're 3-0, and we'll talk about it
We
on your
will be.
channel
We will
next
be.
week.
We will be. Have
Check them
confidence.
out. The Entertainah. I'm sure you guys know him by now. Great channel over there. I'll let you close it out, buddy.
No, man. Thanks for having me on. Always have fun coming on the channel. Looking forward to having you back on the channel next week as we continue this year. And yeah, hopefully we have more smiles. I mean, it's nice to finally be talking about a team that's winning football games and not go. I think I said on our first pod, Mike, I was petrified by week 2, week 3.
Mm.
Yeah, Mike, did you see the college football game last week? What did you think of Anthony
And I
Richardson?
would have said no.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, that would have been like what fans wanted to hear about 2 weeks in. If we started off 0-2,
Mhm.
they already would have turned their sights to the draft. So it's nice to actually feel like we're going to be able to talk about this team in the net here and now. I think for the majority of this year. I
Yeah,
mean,
and November at least, I think we're good. We're chilling.
yeah. So it's nice. It's nice to get off to a nice start and have a favorable schedule coming up. 2 games that I think we should be favored next week. Like I'd be surprised if we're not at least 3-1 after 4.
Me too. Yeah.
So that's promising, even if we
Well,
get 3-1.
now that we're talking about it, I'd be a little disappointed if we're not 4-0, but that's kind of what I'm expecting now, which maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's possible.
I would say 40% 4-0. Just because I would favor us in both games, but to win both, I'd probably put it at about 40%. But I would say like at least an 85% chance we should be 3-1 or better.
Yeah.
With these 2 upcoming games, which if we get to 3-1, then you got 2 challenging games. Don't get it twisted. We could very well be looking at 3-3 if we're 3-1 with the Packers and the Ravens. But then it opens up, as we've said, that 4-game window. If you could take 3, which I think is possible between the Jaguars, the Texans, the Seahawks, and
Lions.
Lions,
Yeah.
you could take 3 of those, and you were 3-3 going in. Suddenly you're 6-4,
Mhm.
or even 7-3 if we could get to 4-0. So
Yeah.
one game at a time. But you look at the upcoming schedule, and it's exciting as a Giants fan.
Yeah. Jags and Lions look pretty good, but a lot can change in a week, as we know, with quarterback injuries and what have you. So we'll
Yeah,
find out.
and the Colts don't look so good. So maybe we win that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a good point. We were scared of that game coming into the year. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for joining. If you made it this far, this feels like a long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I thought it was a good one, so hopefully you guys enjoyed.
Always is, Mike.
We'll talk to you guys next week on Chris's channel. Hopefully we see you at 3-0.
Let's do it.